Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Train Simulator. Today we're going to be taking a journey through the Arizona Divide. We're going to be doing Amtrak Across Arizona Part 1. The description reads as follows: you are the engineer of Amtrak Train 4, the eastbound Southwest Chief. So we're doing the Chief again. En route from Los Angeles to Chicago. As the scenario begins, you are temporarily stopped at Williams Junction while a Phoenix-bound intermodal train clears. Then you'll continue east to the Seligman, completely butchered that, sub, towards the next station stop at Flagstaff. Your power is a duo of Amtrak General Electric B32-8 WH diesels. The B32-8 WH diesels, we'll get started here. These locomotives were essentially placeholders for the Amtrak AMD 103, which would eventually become the Amtrak P40 and the Amtrak P42. There's some also subtext in the letters there, but I don't need to go over that. They're basically just called P40s and P42s. Or no, rather it's P32s and P42s. I don't know, the naming convention is weird, but anyways, because they weren't getting the orders out in time, GE gave Amtrak a bunch of these. They're basically Dash 8s retrofitted with head-end power and some other passenger-related equipment. But they're essentially, their chassis, their control system is pretty much the same. It's just on a freight body, is the best way to describe it. And you'll see it. I'll show it to you. And they were called Pepsi cans back in the day because of their unique Phase 3 paint scheme. And I'll be honest, I never really liked these locomotives, but it's one of those situations where the more that I use and am exposed to them, the more I don't feel so harshly towards them. So, I'm actually really excited to do this. This was a fun run when I did it. I did it either yesterday or the day before, just to test it out. It's a decent length. It's gonna be longer than the Southwest Chief that I did prior to this. So, I'm not sure. I don't think I'm gonna break it up. I think I'm just gonna see how long it goes. It shouldn't be more than an hour at least. I'm gonna try to make sure it's at least under an hour, because if it is, I don't know if I'll be able to put it on Rumble. Seligman subs dispatcher to Amtrak Train 4, the 197 train. Lead unit ATSF 553 is approaching William Junction, now operating on South Track. Once it entered the Phoenix subdivision and is clear of the junction and subject to signal indication, you can proceed eastbound. Dispatch out. So basically they're telling us you need to sit here and wait. Okay, and you can see it in the distance there. She's a-coming, and they'll be going on that track to the right of us. So it's not a long wait at all. But once it clears, we need to make sure we call the dispatch and get cleared. So these are the Pepsi cans. This is how they looked back in the 90s. They had a red beacon light. Some extra lights for passenger signaling for if they're pushing a train. Some extras on the back. But their prime mover is the same as the P40, and they've got a similar head-end power system. I never really liked them because I saw them as just glorified freight locomotives. But like I said, the more I use them, the more I'm partial to them. And they run really good, at least in the simulator. I can't speak for real life. I'm not a real-life engineer. Don't I wish I was, but it's not a good time to get into that industry, unfortunately. Maybe someday, who knows. Maybe I'll work in the railroad in another capacity. I'd like to, but who knows. Put her on the high beams because it's early in the morning. So yeah, overall they're not bad, and we'll go through the train here. So we got some cargo. Amtrak did a little bit of freight hauling back in the day, usually mail. And then we got our baggage and Superliner sleeper, 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 diner, Lounge, cafe, dome, coach, coach, coach. Now, I may be wrong. I usually tend to be. But I do believe that train, the order of the cars is in reverse. Nowadays, there's one baggage car because Amtrak no longer carries freight. And the sleepers are in the back. Don't quote me on that as I take a sip of my cran apple juice. This stuff is good, by the way. If you've never had cranberry apple juice, oh, fantastic. Alright. So, we're going to hit tab to call the dispatcher. Request to pass danger at signal approved. Sweet. I'm going to release the brakes. Put it in forward. Notch up because we're on a hill. Come on, baby. You got our horn here. I like it better than the standard P42 horn, but it's still not great. So we got a speed limit of 90 miles an hour, but that is not going to last. Something you should know about this terrain is you notice when we opened up, the scenario difficulty was in the yellow, which means it's probably about medium difficulty. This is a very, very hilly route, and it feels like a roller coaster. So handling your dynamic brakes is crucial, or if you're good with the air, you could probably do it that way. You know, there's a couple different things you can do. And we are moving along at a good clip. And we shouldn't have to worry about the alerter. The alerter isn't like the alerter on the P42 where they think you're going to be speeding and it just suddenly trips. I don't know why the alerter on the P42 is so different, but oh well. It's one of the things I like better about this locomotive in particular. And throttle down. And just keep your eye on the track gradient bar on the bottom there. It'll tell you how steep the percentage of the grades. There should be a crossing coming up really soon, and another meet with a Santa Fe freight. Gosh, I wish the Santa Fe was still around. They had such beautiful locomotives. And good service from what I understand, really. They're one of the pioneers of intermodal. Not the pioneer specifically, but one of. One of the ones who really emphasized its importance in later years for the freight railroad industry. All right. But yeah, the Santa Fe was terrific, really. Love it. Absolutely love it. I've been loving this Arizona Divide route. It's pretty neat. I haven't done... This is the first, I think, full scenario that I've done with it. I think I started a Santa Fe scenario and didn't follow it all the way through. Notch up a little bit more, get a little bit more speed. Just to get up over this. Not a very big grade. So I hope everybody's doing well, as I say in most of my videos. But it is genuine. I hope everybody watching is doing well, free of sickness and the various troubles of life. And let's be honest, you can't avoid the various troubles of life. They just kind of happen. But I hope everybody's doing well enough to be able to get up in the morning and just take life one day at a time. At a point in my life where that was very difficult. And if I'm honest, some days it still kind of is. Not nearly what it was, but some days you just don't feel motivated to do much. You see, now we got a speed limit coming up to 55. So we won't be seeing 90 miles an hour again until we're done towards the end of the scenario, because of how hilly it's gotten. I'm not going to put on the dynamic brakes right now because this grade doesn't last very long. I'm still a good 10 or so miles below the speed limit. 14 miles below the speed limit. But yeah, no, I understand what it's like to be in scenarios where you just don't want to wake up. You're sad, you're depressed, you're frustrated, regardless. People have all sorts of things they have to deal with on a daily basis. And I know it can be irritating. But my advice is take things one day at a time. You know, life is pretty short. So don't spend it being miserable. Just try to find some joy in the middle of the day. I'm not one of those positivity all the time type people. I knew a lot of people like that, and yeah, I think they're great people, but there are times when you just don't need to hear that you need to be more positive. And I understand that, because especially with things like depression, somebody comes and they tell you, oh, you just need to be more positive about life. Well, if it were that simple, I probably wouldn't be where I was. But I know they're just trying to help. But I will say that sometimes they just don't understand the mindset and the emotional state that a person is in when they're depressed or when they're sad, or more specifically depressed, I would say. So I've always tried to be sensitive to that when talking to people, and just letting people know if they need to vent, they can vent. I have no problems with that. You know, I vent with them. I offer to pray with them and for them. Everybody needs a shoulder to cry on, so to speak. And I know people use that as like, oh, well, yeah, guys just do that to try to hook up with girls. It's like, well, maybe some do, but me personally, I just believe in being a friend to people. And life is tough, as I mentioned before. Set up into dynamic brakes here. So it's good to have somebody to talk to, even if it's just through messaging. A lot of my interactions with people, I would say 98% of my interactions with people are online. You never know how somebody's day is really going and what they're really dealing with. Sometimes people just need someone to listen. I think we all do. Alright, we're off the grade. I think we've got another downgrade coming up by the looks of it. But yeah, that's my stance on why I tell people hope they're having a good day. Just a genuine wish that you are doing well. And hope this video can brighten your day at least. I try to keep it entertaining. I know train simulator videos can be boring because they long stretches of track, but I know some people like to listen to me talk and listen to the sounds of the sim. Give it a little dynamic brake here. Not too much. But yeah, that's kind of my position there. Yeah, we got a crossing. There really are not a lot of crossings on this route. But I'm always ready for the few that there are. At least from the portion of the route that I've experienced. Obviously, we're not going the whole route today. Although I think in both parts that covers the majority of the route. Yeah, here's another Santa Fe. Ooh, F45s. And an SD40-2. And that's a lot of power for a train that, frankly, is not very long. Okay, well, it's a little longer than I thought it was. It just didn't look long from this angle. And plus, with these hills, you need all the power you can get, so. I was going to start the throttle up there, then I saw the drop in the grade. Yeah, it is a challenge. You got to keep your eye on that bar, because once you see yourself accelerating faster than you're intending to go, then you look down and realize, oh no, I'm on a downhill grade. Going uphill isn't the problem. Going downhill is, because that's where you can get the train running away from you and get speeding penalties. I don't like getting speeding penalties, although this is a workshop, Steam Workshop scenario, so I don't really have to worry about speeding penalties. But I like to do this as flawlessly as I can and treat it like a actual scored scenario. I do love this scenery. I think we will see a little bit more desert scenery as we go along. Now, I'm not sure if it's this or if it's Train Simulator World, but one of these games is getting or has Tehachapi Loop. And that route, in terms of the aesthetics, is very inaccurate. The actual loop itself is in a forested area. Or anybody who is familiar with the Tehachapi Loop knows it's smack dab in the middle of the California desert. The mountainous desert region. Okay, now we need to throttle up. Big grade. Put it all the way up to 8. 1.8%. And we are going to have a crossover at some point here soon, too. Let's just see. How far are we? Okay. So about 21 miles. Not bad. And I believe point number 5 is the crossover. The heck is that? Huh. Sounded like another locomotive on the opposing track or something. Okay, I can throttle down now. Milepost 365. Days a week. Days a year. Gosh, I screwed that up. 7 days a week, 365 days a year. What a brain fart. I'm glad I'm able to take you all on this ride, though, because like I said, when I practiced this scenario, I was like, boy, this would be perfect to record. Looks like we got clear signals. Of course, today this is all BNSF. And I'm not sure if the Southwest Chief is still on this exact route or not. It'd be cool to take the Southwest Chief the full distance, but the problem is I don't like either of the cities that it terminates in. Not a big fan of Chicago, really not a big fan of Los Angeles. Be neat to see both for their railroad history, but as of right now, they're not exactly desirable cities for me to visit. So, I say no thank you to that. If I was offered a free trip, would I do it? Maybe. But I wouldn't pay money to travel to Chicago. The most I'd be willing to do is the Illinois Railroad Museum. And that's not to say Chicago is necessarily a terrible city. There's fine parts of it, but that South Side is notorious. I've heard enough stories about that for me to not want to be anywhere near it. And the city's just been having problems in general. but I would like to... It'd be fun to take the Southwest Chief. I'm not sure how many days it takes for it to get from Chicago to LA, or if it does it in 24 hours. I'll have to go ahead and check. I doubt it though, because that's a big distance to cover for 24 hours, and you have to just keep moving. And I'm sure they have to do crew changes and pick up more people than further points down the line, you know. The people who book the roomettes in the Superliner sleepers, I mean, they're fine. They've got their own room to themselves. But if you're riding coach that whole distance, and that's not exactly comfortable for some. I wouldn't mind it too much. There's another Santa Fe. Now we're getting up to 90 again. Oh, some stacks. Not a whole lot of grade here. Just like that, he's gone. Gosh, I love this cran apple juice. Good stuff, especially when it's cold. Our frames are dropping a little bit. But it happens. Alright, let's see where we're at here. About 16 miles. So we closed the gap pretty good here. Making really good time. Now we're coming up on a downhill. And the limit is 90, so I don't need to go into dynamic right away. You can see on the bar below how the grade crests. You've got just a little bit of smoothing out at the top. And then it starts to go down, then it smooths out, then it starts to go down again. And it kind of goes down in steps, if I'm remembering correctly. Thankfully, we have that 90-mile-an-hour speed limit, so we've got a little bit of breathing room here. So I'm just going to let it roll downhill. And go up again a little, and then it'll go back down. Like I said, it's very much like a roller coaster, like a loop. Be cool if they could incorporate some wildlife, like some deer running along the tracks, maybe some birds. I mean, it's not 110% necessary, but it'd be cool. This one looks a little steep. I just gotta remember to slow down when the time comes to cross over. I believe it's a 45 crossover, 45-mile-an-hour crossover. But I think we're still a solid distance away from it. Yeah, it's about 3 miles. Not terribly far. It's funny how you can see the grade in the terrain, sort of, the way it goes up and down. And I mean just by looking at it, not even just by the chart. I should get a prompt when it's getting closer to time for me to cross over. That would be my telephone. Alright, somebody got my telephone. I apologize if that came through the recording. It probably did. This mic is very sensitive. Is this a crossing? Yeah. Alright, so it is 40 miles an hour. So time for some dynamics. Wow, I'm making much better time than my first trip even. So it should be right around the bend here. Possibly a little before. A bit of a rough ride there. Alright, so it's right at this, I believe it's right at this signal that we cross over. Let up on the dynamic brakes a little bit. And then I think that 40 miles an hour sticks for a couple more miles. Well, maybe less than that, because then it goes right back up to 70. Yeah, we can put it in idle. Here we go. And cross over. Beautiful. Nice and smooth. Very nice. Alright, we're only 9 miles out from the depot. So it'll be coming up very quickly here. Not a single speeding penalty as of yet. One thing I really got to compliment Dovetail Games on, and the third-party studios like High Iron who work on these routes, is just the main lines look so smooth. These long, winding main lines. They don't look, you know, out of place. They don't look jagged. Like, it looks like you're going across actual track with ties. It doesn't look like it shouldn't. This is a very great simulator. I know people have some complaints about some of the technical bugs that are in it, but it is a far less buggy sim than Iran Trains, which is the other sim that I like. But this one, is definitely my favorite when it comes to recording and taking screenshots. The screenshot tool is excellent. The angles are just awesome. So well done to the team at Dovetail that programmed that, because it is fantastic. The one thing I want to see more of, and this I guess is more to the third-party studios, I want to see more steam. we've got some steam with some of the Union Pacific stuff with the big boy, but I really want to see. I'd like to see more locomotives added for Horseshoe Curve for the Pennsylvania. Some of Penzie's bigger locomotives. One thing I would absolutely love is to have the Reading Railroad's main line. Oh my goodness. They've been working on some stuff with B&O. They did the Western Maryland pack, which I've shown you guys already, and it is absolutely phenomenal. And it just makes me want a Reading pack even more. I think the Reading is possibly my favorite railroad in the state of Pennsylvania. Favorite fallen flag, even more so than the Pennsylvania Railroad itself. Because the Pennsylvania Railroad itself is awesome. But it's more... The Pennsylvania Railroad was more an interstate railroad, whereas the Reading was exclusively in PA. Well, it was in parts of New Jersey, and if you want to be even more technical than that, they own the Central Railroad in New Jersey, so they were in New Jersey and New York as well. So, point being, the Reading is pretty much a smaller regional line, connected by other interstate lines. But that didn't stop it from being a well-known railroad and a well-run railroad from what I have studied. I mean, after all, it has a space in the Monopoly port. I think I've mentioned that before. Along with the Baltimore and Ohio, which I like the B&O too. I really do. I'm glad that B&O is getting some love in the simulator. But I've yet to see Reading. And I think it might be a licensing thing with Norfolk Southern, because they own the Reading track territory. I don't know that they own the Reading Railroad name. I don't think they do. But gosh, would I love to see Reading content in here. Anybody knows somebody at Dovetail Games or at High Iron or any of these other route developers, please give us Reading. You could throw some, oh gosh, the amount of equipment. You could throw some Reading Alco Centuries in there, some GP9s. They've already got GP9 models. Some Reading F units, Bud cars. You can even have the electrical section so you can have multiple unit trains. There's a lot of stuff there. And like I said, it's one of the best known railroads of pretty much all of America. Alright, we are coming up on a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. Setup takes a little long for the dynamics. Don't need it to go down quite so fast. The dynamic brakes really work good on this locomotive. Really good. It's actually very impressive. So we're only 5 miles out from the depot. So far, we haven't had any other frame drops as well. Fingers crossed it stays like that till the end of the recording. And Flagstaff is actually at the very bottom of this grade. So it's a little challenging to get the train slowed down in time. But I managed to do it on my first try, so hopefully I'll have just as much luck this time. So if people are wondering if they want to get into train simulators, I would say it helps to have a decent gaming PC at the very least. If you're talking about just playing a train simulator, you definitely want a dedicated GPU, graphics card. I don't even remember which card that I have. I was going to say this is the card I have. It's a lower end card, but it does the job, and I can record with it. I just have to do it at 30 FPS, and I haven't gotten any complaints about it. But yeah, if you want to get into train simulators, which one would I recommend? I would recommend this one. I think it's got a good blend of realistic style control, and the physics are okay. Some of the prices for the DLC can be a little much. I'm not a huge fan of that, admittedly. But besides that, it's a pretty great simulator. And as time goes on, the more stuff that comes packaged with the game, it seems. And plus, I would recommend, if you're going to get Dovetail Train Simulator and you've never had it before, and you're looking at DLCs, wait for Steam sales. And see what people are saying in the reviews about the different DLCs. Probably heard my dog barking in the background. We're actually expecting some company really soon here, and I've got to take care of her, so hopefully I can make it to the station in time and wrap things up. She gets very scared around new people. I'm gonna let gravity do some of the work for me here. But yeah, she's not an aggressive dog. She's a Yorkie Poo, about 3 years old now. 3 years old. I can't even keep track. I think we got her in 2019, so she's technically 3, or almost 3. She's my first dog, and I love her. Not a whole lot more passing traffic on the other track, and you'll see why in just a few minutes here. Ooh, that was close. Almost got a speeding penalty. Like I said, the train can get away from you if you're not paying attention real easily. Now, I'm not sure why 40 is the limit here. I guess they figured that's the safest speed because of the corners. And then they give you 5 more miles an hour. But it's pretty much all downhill to Flagstaff, and we're not far now. I believe this is Flagstaff in question. I can already see where the depot is. And we got a freight sitting on the right-hand side. On the right-hand track. I hope you guys enjoyed this ride. I thought it was pretty fun. I think I've managed to keep it just under an hour. Which is exactly what I wanted to do. A little early on the horn here. Alrighty. I'm gonna try to line the train up here nice. Alrighty, folks. Here we are. Alrighty. And let's get our outside view here. Very nice. And we can unload. Sort of blocking the crossing, but it's okay. Well done. The journey of Amtrak train number 4 of the Southwest Chiefs will be continued in part 2. Very cool. And gave a thumbs up. Very well done, the author of this scenario at the Steam Workshop. Alright, folks. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video, if that's part 2 of this or something else. God bless, and I'll see you all further down the line. Peace.